The WNBA GMs did an anonymous survey before the 2025 season. I love seeing things like this because sometimes I wonder what the heck some of these general managers are thinking. I think we learned a lot about how certain players and teams are viewed. I'll put a link in the description for the full survey. The general managers overwhelmingly have the Lynx winning the WNBA Finals. New York only got 20% of the votes, and Indiana and the Aces only got 10%. I'm very shocked by this. If the Liberty don't have any more major injuries, I don't see how they are not the favorite. They have 3 of the top 10 players in the league, and added one of the best point guards in the Natasha Cloud. Minnesota getting Jessica Shepard back is huge, but they still have a massive hole in the center position. I just don't see it. For the MVP award, Napheesa Collier got 2/3 of the vote. I'm in full agreement of this. It's supposed to be a regular season award, but there is no doubt in my mind the voters will think about how Napheesa almost single-handedly won a WNBA championship, while A'ja Wilson got sent home in the second round. She's also going to be carrying a much bigger load than Caitlin Clark and A'ja Wilson. As good as the Lynx are, Napheesa doesn't have other star players she can hide behind. She has to be their best offensive and defensive player at all times for the Lynx to be successful, and that's why I think she takes it. Now this is where I think this survey gets interesting. 6 GMs said they would start a franchise with Caitlin Clark. 4 said A'ja Wilson, while Napheesa and Dominique Molonga got some votes. Caitlin Clark is not shocking at all, even ignoring the ridiculous economic and viewership impact she had on both the Fever and the league. The fact she was a top 5 player as a 22-year-old rookie is absolutely insane. There's no doubt in my mind she will be on the Mount Rushmore of the WNBA one day, and GMs recognize that. But what really shocks me is that Dominique Molonga received votes. Paige Bueckers received none. Paige Bueckers was widely viewed by the media as the consensus #1 pick, and was seen as completely untradeable. But seeing this makes me think there are several GMs that would have, or at least wanted to draft Dominique Molonga over her. This tells me if Olivia Miles entered the draft, there's absolutely no way she would have been taken over Dominique. It also makes me wonder how GMs feel about the Sparks essentially trading Dominique Molonga for a 1-year high-volume scorer in Kelsey Plum. Personally, I thought that trade was awful, and seeing this makes me think there's a lot of GMs that never would have taken that deal. And this also shows that general managers don't think Caitlin Clark and Paige Bueckers belong in the same conversations, even though that would be a crazy thought a few years ago. I don't understand the picks for the players that are predicted to have a breakout season. Some of these players are multi-time All-Stars, but they are somehow getting votes. That feels very lazy to me. Maddie Siegrist would be my vote. It would not remotely shock me to see her starting once the season progresses. She was an absolute bucket in college, and has dominated everyone in her 2 seasons in Athletes Unlimited. She was being held back because Dallas was the Arike and Sabali showcase, but this year she'll be able to spread her wings and show what she can really do. Camila Cardoso is also a big one for me. I think she was easily the most misused player in the WNBA. She was nearly unstoppable when she got a decent pass close to the basket, but was mainly used as a decoy to make it easier for other players to score. Caitlin Clark and Chelsea Gray were tied for the best point guard in the WNBA, and Chelsea Gray beat her out in the passing and IQ category. This is being blown way out of proportion. This isn't a case of WNBA GMs hating on Caitlin, being jealous of her, or whatever other nonsense they are being accused of. Half the GMs voted for her as the #1 player they would build a franchise around, so it's clear they rate her very highly as a basketball player. Being considered a better point guard and being a better player are 2 different things. Hannah Hidalgo is without a doubt a better player than Olivia Miles, but Olivia Miles is better in the point guard role specifically. Steve Nash is a better pure point guard than Steph Curry, but Curry is the better overall basketball player. Trae Young led the league in assists over Tyrese Halliburton, but Tyrese is considered a better point guard because he had a much better assist-to-turnover ratio. The GMs feel the exact same way about Chelsea Gray. The last time she was healthy, she averaged 7 assists to only 2.5 turnovers, compared to Caitlin, who averaged 8.5 assists to 5.5 turnovers per game. Caitlin is without a doubt an amazing passer, but the idea that Chelsea Gray has no argument over her in that category is ridiculous. What I do find interesting is that Caitlin Clark got the most votes for best shooting guard. This tells me a lot of general managers view her as a James Harden type player. Harden has put up higher assist numbers than most guards in the NBA. but his scoring was so prolific he was never viewed as a point guard. I don't agree with this logic being applied to Caitlin, but I would argue that's the reason she got votes as a shooting guard, even though it looks weird to everyone else reading the list. The same thing can be said about Sabrina Ionescu being listed as a shooting guard. I don't agree with it, but I can kind of see how they could make that argument. The Indiana Fever were voted number 1 for the best offseason. Hard to argue with that. But the Washington Mystics quietly had one of the best off seasons. They set themselves up for long-term success. They kept 4 out of the 5 players they drafted, and they were able to get an additional first-round pick from the Lynx for next year's draft. The Washington Mystics are more focused on the long-term growth of their younger players, which is exactly what they should be doing. I don't understand any of the picks for underrated player acquisitions. I wouldn't consider any of these players underrated, as all of them have high expectations for their new team. I would say the most underrated player acquisition is easily JC Sheldon. She was much better than she was allowed to be at Dallas, but she will be able to play with a lot more confidence and freedom in Connecticut. She will be able to play her style of basketball instead of being forced into a pure point guard role, which doesn't fit her game at all. Most GMs voted Paige Bueckers for Rookie of the Year, but Dominique won the vote for who will be the best player in the next 5 years. I don't know if this is a case of GMs being low on Paige Bueckers or just being extremely high on Dominique. She got votes for Best International Player in the league, and there are a couple of general managers who voted her as the number 1 player they would build a franchise around. I don't want to call her overrated because I think she's one of the best post prospects of this decade, but I think the expectations have become way too high. We went from her getting mocked under Olivia Miles just a few months ago to now she's expected to dunk on people and be better than Paige Bueckers. It's very dangerous to project a player professionally based off how they look as late teenagers. If college had a one-and-done rule, Janiah Barker would have been the consensus number 1 pick over players like Lauren Betts, Flau'jae, and Latson. If a GM did that now, they would be fired on the spot. It sounds laughable now, but there was a time where Haley Jones was a better player than Rickea Jackson, but Haley's game never really developed. I don't think Dominique's case will be nearly as extreme as those two, but I think leapfrogging her over a player like Paige Bueckers, who has been dominating college for 4 years and has put up historic numbers, is going a bit too far. As great as I think Dominique can be, I don't think passing up on one of the greatest shooting prospects to ever play, who is also an elite facilitator, is something a team should bet on. Dominique getting votes for steal of the draft is ridiculous. There's no such thing as a steal if you're a top 2 pick. But I will say, an argument can be made for a lot of players. JJ Quinterly stands out to me since she was a 3rd-round pick, but Isaiah James is someone I thought wasn't going to drop past 7, because she is one of the best shot creators in all of women's college basketball. For Dallas to get her at 12 is insane, and I think a lot of GMs will regret not drafting her. The Las Vegas Aces have no business getting any votes for best young core. They literally cut Deja Kelly, who would have been one of their better younger players. Kitley and Nye can provide some good value to the Aces, but by themselves they have no case for being one of the best young cores in the league. I think the argument for the Sparks, or Dallas, could go either way. I lean towards Dallas because I think Paige Bueckers will end up being a better player than Cameron Brink and Rickea Jackson. I like Sarah Ashley Barker and Fagan a lot, but I wouldn't put them over Maddie Siegrist and Isaiah James. But that's it for this video. What do y'all think about this survey? Is there anyone you think is being slept on or being overhyped? I'd love to hear your thoughts. Thanks for watching.